everyone, welcome back to the Little Goth Panda YouTube channel. Today is going to be a highlight from my Friday stream, so 23rd of April 2021. And today is a True Crime Friday, as per usual. As I said, we do these every 2 weeks. And this one I decided to do on stream because I've not done that in a good long while. So I thought, why not bring it back, because I really do miss doing them on streams. So the highlights will now be posted onto here, but I'll always introduce you like this. So hi! But also, big disclaimer, which I will mention in a sec once we go live. This is not hero worship. I only have this interest in serial killers based on their psychology. I have no disrespect to any of the victims or anyone involved that was affected by these crimes. This is purely for educational purposes, and if you are under the age of 16, this is not for you. So today we're going to be covering the Yorkshire Ripper, and you are going to see me start my stream in about a few minutes. So, this will be interesting. Let's go. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Little Goth Panda stream. How is everyone doing today? As you might have seen by the title, if you have not been here that long, then do not worry, this is your first time experiencing this. But on Fridays, what we did when I first started this Twitch streams, what was that word? The words. See, I can't speak. when we started doing these Twitch streams, I decided to do a little thing every single Friday called True Crime Friday, where we talk about a new true crime topic every single week. It became a little bit draining, so I kind of needed a break from it, and I was going to start uploading them onto YouTube, but it was not doing. It's not something I did want, and I didn't really like it. I'm not gonna lie. So instead, I preferred talking on here, because I love interacting with you guys while I talk about it, and it's a lot more chilled. And plus, this time we've got food. Going up in the world. Of course, it's pasta. Of course, it's pasta. We've got food, we've got drinks. So we can casually talk about a lot of true crime topics. So, today's one, a little bit of disclaimer. I'm always going to give a disclaimer out for these. Today's topic is Peter Sutcliffe. You might know him more commonly being known as the Yorkshire Ripper. So, big disclaimer for this one. This is not hero worship. I only have an interest in true crime topics. It's purely for educational purposes. So please, please, please acknowledge none of this is hero worship. We do not encourage anything that gets mentioned in this. Please bear in mind that if you are under the age of 16, then this is definitely not for you. I would not recommend watching it if you are sensitive to topics of murder, rape, and sexual assault. It is not. This stream will not be for you, because there will be quite a fair few mentions of this. So, I'm going to suggest you all get your snacks, because I've got my pasta. So we're just going to treat this like you're sat with me in my flat, and we're just talking about true crime. Because fuck it. Let's do it. So, I was going to do all my stuff on Dennis Nielsen, but all my research on Dennis Nielsen has weirdly, mysteriously gone. Can't find any of it. However, I've got way too much shit on Peter Sutcliffe, so. Also, I am way too confident on knowing way too much about Peter Sutcliffe. Like, I don't even need, probably, for some of it, I do not even need to read all my research. I researched it that many times. Oh, I'm dropping my food already. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Hey. Hey, Matt. We're gonna sit back, we're gonna keep this casual. I used to do these true crime streams quite seriously. They need to be serious. It literally landed just like right before it hit the floor. Like it was on like a little thing that I've got down there, so I was like, okay. And plus I've just cleaned it, so I'm fine. It's my floor. Leave me alone. Plus, don't waste pasta. Never waste pasta. So let's get right on into it. Peter Sutcliffe. You are from the UK. You definitely know who he is. So, Peter Sutcliffe. He was born on the 2nd of June 1946 in Bingley, Yorkshire, to John and Kathleen Sutcliffe. Now, he was their first child. He was their first child. He was born as Peter William Sutcliffe. Now, Pete was the eldest, so he was the first of 5 other children. He was actually born prematurely, and the doctors actually weren't sure if he was going to survive or not. He had now, it's because he was in such a bad condition when he was born. Now, the Sutcliffe family was known to be very, very, very religious and strict. You can put this on a bingo card, guys, because I bet you, I can tell you this right now, many of these fuckers end up being on a bingo card of what makes them how they are. So, you can put religious and strict on your bingo. Now, it was mostly John Sutcliffe, the father, that was worse than anyone else in the family when it came to this. One of Peter's brothers, Carl Sutcliffe, was quoted on saying, "Growing up with Peter, he was a really nice guy. Him being so much older than me, he was more like a father figure, as my dad never was really around. He was either working out or at the pub or just going to sports events. And Pete used to teach me things that fathers should really. So he was a great big brother." Obviously, this must be really difficult for the family, finding out later on what he would go about to do. Told you guys, get your snacks. Get your snacks. Because this is going to be a big one. Hey, Anne! Anne142X. How are you doing, my friend? Oh my god, the pasta. Oh, fuck's sake, why is it going like that? So John the father was very jealous, and he constantly abused Kathleen. Now he constantly accused her of having affairs all the time, which was pretty hypocritical of him because he was actually the one having the affairs in the relationship. So John was a big, burly, sporty, and sociable guy, complete opposites to his wife. Do you remember me? May not, because it's been too long. I do remember you. I do. Your name actually rang a bell, because you used to pop up in the chat. I don't forget people easily. So one thing that really angered John is the fact that Peter actually wasn't really the biggest fan of his father. He was more of a really, ultimate mummy's boy. You don't forget me, though. How could I ever forget you? How? So Peter absolutely adored his mother. However, he couldn't stick up for her and defend her from John's violent rages out of fear that John would actually turn and take his anger out on him instead. So Peter hated school. It has been said that he preferred to be alone as a child in order to save himself from the bullying that he faced throughout his school years. Hey, cool Connor, how you doing? As I see you now got bigger on Twitch. Not that much bigger, May. I still remember you guys. Always will. I mean, anything could happen to my brain from that, and I could easily get memory loss. So yeah, Peter hated school. He said that he preferred to be alone a lot as a child, so he was more of a loner. Now, he did this in order to save himself from bullying, but he faced this throughout his childhood years. My day's going pretty good. I am fucking tired, though. I just got home from work, and I've been stood up all day, so my legs are dead, so I'm eating food, having some drinks right now, and then I'm going to be going out for drinks later, so... But I must provide the true crime content! Want to also say to every single person that's watching this today, this is a highlight that will be going up on YouTube later on after the stream has ended, because I want to upload my true crime highlights onto YouTube so people can constantly view them at an easier rate. Sounds good. You got GTA on PC. I do not. I've only got it on PS4. So yeah, Peter was getting bullied constantly at school, and he found it really hard to make friends. And when he was in primary school, he couldn't take the bullying and loneliness anymore, and he would start skipping school and actually hiding in the attic to read comic books. Now, this one went on for about 2 weeks, and his parents didn't know anything. Hi, it's Titan, but new name. Ah, nice. To be fair, I kind of probably would have guessed, considering you got the little sword next to your name for being my moderator. My moderator's here, guys. Watch your words. So yeah, Peter actually skipped school for about 2 weeks, and his parents didn't know anything about it. So what he would do is his mum would say bye to him in the morning, so he'd get ready for school as per usual. He'd leave the house, wait for his parents to actually leave the house to go to work, or wait until Kathleen would leave the house, go run errands, and then he'd come back in the house, go up to the attic, and just sit in there all day and read comic books. I'll poke you with this sword. Just gonna poke everyone with a sword now. What just happened? My alert went off. And I didn't actually get to see it. I just like slightly heard it. Redeemed hydrate. It's a cocktail, so this could go one or two ways. So, yeah, like I said, he'd go to the attic, wait till his parents had left, and he'd go running up there and just stay there all day. Now, so yeah, like I said, Peter would leave the house after breakfast as if he was walking to school. Then when his parents left the house, he'd run back up the stairs and hide away in the attic until after school ended, and then would show up at the house as if he's just returned home from school. Now, the thing is, John didn't exactly help with the bullying in any way whatsoever. So one thing that's really embarrassing as a kid, so I'm not marrying you, say that, go back there. So one thing that John did that really did not help with Peter's bullying is the fact that he would show up at the school during lunchtime and yell at Peter to go and play with the other kids. Which, naturally, your parents rocking up to your school and doing that, that's not exactly going to help with your bullying. Then, so later on in Peter's life, as a teenager, Peter actually began bodybuilding, so he began bulking up a lot more to help with his confidence. Now, this is part of his life that John actually started to respect his son a lot more because he felt like Peter was becoming more manly, whereas before he felt like he was a bit more feminine, so he actually really didn't like Peter when he was feminine, preferred him a lot more when he started to bulk up a bit. So Peter actually left school at the age of 15. He indulged into what would most call very, very odd jobs, such as the first one being quite normal, which was an engineering internship. However, the job that he didn't do that for long. He kind of quit that after a couple of years. So after that job, he actually got a job as a grave digger. So he worked as a grave digger at Bingley Cemetery and showed immense passion for it. It's also said to be a turning point in his life, which turned him into a bit of a sadist, I'm not gonna lie. He actually enjoyed watching the corpses. He would arrange corpses whilst they're being prepared to be buried in grotesque poses. So what he'd do, he'd dig in the graves, but he'd also open up a lot of the coffins, and he'd actually play around with the corpses. So he'd put them in weird poses. He would also use the skulls as ventriloquist dolls, which sounds like something out of a really shitty sitcom, or just like an episode of The Simpsons or Family Guy. It doesn't sound like something someone should do in real life, you know. He would later get excited while telling his friends about how he had the best job in the world and about how much he enjoyed the sight of corpses. Now, one thing that one of his old friends actually recalls when Peter was working at the cemetery was that one of his friends at the time was actually thinking about proposing to his girlfriend, and he was talking to Peter about this in the pub, and Peter actually got out a handful of engagement rings or wedding rings and said, "Oh, here, take one of mine." Now, these were all rings that were stolen from graves. Bit weird. He liked to play morbid pranks with the bodies, such as chasing girls he would invite to the cemetery with the skulls that he took out of the graves. He also began stealing the jewellery of the dead in his spare time, like I said. And Peter also enjoyed visiting the Wax Museum. His favourite section displayed, and quote, "the devastating symptoms of advanced venereal disease." But his favourite band was Cannibal Corpse. Maybe. Yeah, Cannibal Corpse weirded me out. Just a little bit, just a little bit. So in 1966, 20-year-old, he's still a gravedigger. He's dead now. Spoiler alert. In 1966, at the age of 20, Peter met Sonia Suma, the daughter of Czech Republic immigrants. Now, Sonia was born in, I'm going to say this wrong, Oksana, was born Oksana Suma in 1950 to Polish and Ukrainian parents after they fled to England from what was then called Czechoslovakia after the war. Spoiler, he's fucking dead now. This is like in the 60s, 70s, bear in mind. Growing up in Bradford, Sonia had an older sister called Marianne. And by the time Sonia was 15, she and Marianne used to tell lies to their father in order to go to the local clubs and discos. They always said they were going to the ballet, and it was actually one of these local pubs that Sonia met Peter. Now, Sonia was only... I need a cuppa. Go get a cuppa, my guy. My girl. My human! Fuck. Sorry. I call everyone my guy, but I forget not a lot of people are cool with it. So you're not my human. My person, you're my person. If anyone watches Grey's Anatomy. So, sweet. So, Sonia was 15 when she met Peter. Like I said, he was 20 years old at the time. 5-year difference is not that weird when you're in like your 20s, but when you are 15 and he's 20, bit weird. But then again, this is the 60s, isn't it? So they got engaged in 1967, so literally a year later, Sonia was 16 and Peter was 21 at the time. And they used to spend evenings around each other's houses a lot because, you know, Sonia was 16. Reports claim that in 1969, the two of them actually had a really bad argument and Peter stormed out of the house in an attempt to cheat on Sonia. He sought the company of a sex worker but allegedly couldn't go through with it because, according to Sutcliffe, the woman tried to swindle him out of £5. You stingy cunt. He's a stingy little bastard, I've got to warn you that now. He is, he's stingy. He's stingy. I'm gonna guess that was a host and I cannot see it because it's not showing up on my thing. I'm making a cuppa right now. Go make a cuppa. Go on. How many sugars? Fucking hell. Spice. Went down the road. Wrong way. One sugar. I can't have too much sugar in tea. It just tastes wrong. I don't have sugar in tea, actually. I don't have any sugar in tea. I know, it's a scoundrel. So, Peter's father, John, his old-fashioned views started to take part into Peter's psyche at this point. So, as we know, Peter was a big mama's boy, and he actually there was no issues at this point. There was no petty crimes. There was absolutely nothing leading up to this point. But now, as Peter's gotten older, his father's views have actually started to go on to Peter. Now, Peter's views towards women started to become the fact that he thought that each woman was either a pure virgin mother, worthy of sacred love, or they were a sinful whore. And if they were the latter, then they were less than a human, and killing would be more the eradication of an infestation than of murder. This is literally what Peter Sutcliffe has said. As he later stated, and quote, I was just cleaning the streets. We don't need humans like that. We don't need that. We don't stand. I mean, he's a serial killer. We shouldn't be standing anyway. I've also still got my pasta, so I'm still eating at the same time, guys. In 1970, John actually accused Kathleen of cheating on him. He had suspicions that she was meeting up with another man in a hotel, and he took Peter with him to confront her. He insulted Kathleen in front of the entire family, and this particular incident had a very serious impact on Peter. So he always saw, Peter always thought that his mother was like the perfect woman, how every woman on the planet should be. And this event actually kind of turned his opinion the other direction, and actually to what how his father saw Peter's mother. And this made him think that all women were actually unfaithful. In 1974, Peter and Sonia got married. The early start of the marriage wasn't easy for both of them. Sonia had several miscarriages, and doctors eventually declared that she was physically unfit to ever have a successful pregnancy. Rumours are that Sonia cheated on Peter with an ice cream vendor, and this made Peter's hatred for women grow even stronger than they were before. Peter hired sex workers ever since he was a teenager with what money he had, and he spent a lot of money on paid sex. Sometimes the couple even went in to face financial troubles due to his habit, and naturally Sonia was none the wiser what was going on. This resulted in the couple having to move into her parents' house, since they couldn't afford their own place. Because Peter was constantly late to every single job he had, there was never actually a secure source of income. Now, at the time, Sonia was actually training to become a teacher at a local school. However, during her teacher training, she suffered a mental breakdown, and actually this led to her being diagnosed with schizophrenia. So Sonia was already going through some shit, guys. She didn't need Peter being a dickhead. Just saying. In June 1975, Peter got his HGV license. His lorry driving job allowed him to come and go wherever he pleased, which is not the best thing in the world for young Pete. Just saying. Now, let me have a little bit of food before we go into the victims. I want to also point out, we do not just talk about the women that were murdered during this, we also talk about the women that were attacked and actually did survive their attacks, because the trauma is still living on them for those that are actually still with us today. Hope you guys got your snacks and your drinks. Okay, this is getting pretty goddamn intense. Making sure I'm all good. Ah! Don't let my pasta fall out on the floor! Don't do this to me! Pasta's good. Pasta's life. All hail Lord Pasta. All hail Lord Pasta. Pasta's the best thing on the planet. I don't think people can tell me any different. I would die for pasta. I'd die for it. You guys just heard that, I just realised. I apologise. So, victim number 1 is Anna Patricia Anna Patricia Rogulskis. I am so terrible at pronouncing names, so this is going to go very badly. Oh god, I've just put nails on, so let's see if I can actually open a can. I'm gonna put this right. I can't open cans. Yes! Beautiful. So Sutcliffe's first known attack occurs in the early hours of the 4th of July 1975 in Cayley. Now, Anna was an attractive divorcee. This is very well known in a lot of the documentaries that she's a very attractive divorcee. Now, after an argument that she had with her then boyfriend, she went on a night out with some friends. Get it, girl. Then, the early hours of the morning, made her way back to his house. At 1:30 in the morning, she arrived at her boyfriend's, and after multiple knocks on the door and shouting at the door, she realised that he actually wasn't home. She started to consider what she's got to do next, considering he's not there, and Sutcliffe actually spots her at this point on the street. He sneaks up behind her and disables her by beating her around the head with a ball-peen hammer. The ball-peen hammer makes an appearance in pretty much almost every single attack. Once she's stunned to the ground, he lifts up her skirt and goes to work on her with a knife. She is mercifully unconscious as he slashes and mutilates her genitalia and stomach. I apologise, this is grim. When a neighbour disturbs him, the dark covers the scene, and Sutcliffe actually manages to reassure the man that questioned the ruckus that everything is fine and that he's just helping Anna because she's a bit drunk. Now the man actually leaves them to it and says, "Okay, that's fine," and just goes away. So Peter actually leaves the scene, leaving Anna for dead. And a passerby sees her and she's rushed to Leeds General Infirmary, where doctors would work on her for 12 hours. She was actually read her last rites, but luckily she survived. Now she was left physically and emotionally scarred and forever changed. Anna spends the next 33 years alone behind a barricade of bars, wires and alarms. And due to her injuries, she actually couldn't work, and she was just living on benefits on £13 a week at the time. Not an easy life for young Anna. After Anna's attack, Sutcliffe went home to a sleeping Sonia and woke up the next morning, heading off to work as if nothing actually ever happened. The second victim was Olive Smelt. Now, a month after his first attack, on Friday the 15th of August 1975, Sutcliffe drives his friend Trevor Birdsall, who makes a lot of appearances, young little Trevor here, to Halifax for a few drinks. His eyes lock onto 46-year-old Olive Smelt. The married mother of two is out with her friends for her regular Friday night drinks. Again, get it, girl. Her husband at the time is looking after the kids at home, She goes home before midnight, and Sutcliffe follows with Trevor to his car. He leaves his friend and meets up with her in an alleyway. He smashes Olive over the head with a ball-peen hammer again, like he did before. And he says a quote, "I love true crime. Welcome to the stream. You'll love it here then." He says, "Weather's letting us down, isn't it?" "Yeah, bants, Peter. You got great bants." Stunned and grounded, he then slashes her backside with his knife, but an approaching car prevents him from actually killing Olive. He returns back to the car where Trevor is waiting for him and leaves the scene. Trevor's just like, nah, none the wiser, mate, even though it all came out that Olive got attacked. Trevor! Read the room! Trevor, come on! Olive's life after this is ruined, and when reporting the crimes to the police actually investigated many men around the area and even her husband. Now, this actually led to Olive to have a massive hatred for men, which you can't really blame her at this point for that, including her husband. So she actually was scared of every single man plus her husband. So Trevor Birdsall is actually at this point Peter Sutcliffe's best friend. He's kind of a bit ditzy and not the sharpest tool in the shed, considering he's always in the car waiting for Peter while Peter's going on doing his killing. Trevor, read the room. So Olive actually ended up having a massive fear of men, including her husband, which later led for the marriage to fail not too long after the attack. And in September, Peter starts working as a regular delivery driver, which means he's got a lot of access to the roads. Now, the third victim is Tracy Brown. So this was his third attack, which is in August. She is his youngest victim that has been noted down. On a warm summer's evening on the 27th of August 1975, 14-year-old Tracy Brown is walking to her home in Willesden Village. An unassuming Sutcliffe walks past her, he dawdles until she catches up with him, pretending to be a local. He walks by her side for over 30 minutes, and then just before she gets home, he pulls out his hammer, and she remembers him grunting from the force of the blows. She says, and quote, "To this day I can hear those ugly grunts, but amazingly I never lost consciousness throughout it all." The fact that she never lost consciousness throughout being hit over the head with a ball-peen hammer is fucking incredible. Now the headlights of an approaching car disturbed Peter Sutcliffe, and it actually saved Tracy's life because he didn't go through with killing her. And so far, the woman hating Sutcliffe has managed to attack a divorcee, a married mother of 2, and a young schoolgirl. So the next victim is probably the one that a lot of people know the most as being his first victim, because this is actually his first ever murder. On the evening of the 29th of October, Wilma McCann, a 28-year-old Scottish mother of 4, is on a night out. Get it, girl, come on. All these girls go on nights out, but it unfortunately ends badly for them. She leaves her 9-year-old daughter in charge of 3 of the children for the night. It was a different time. Now, after closing time, she tries to hitch a ride home. Unfortunately, Wilma is shouting at the driver that offers her a lift. Now, this is a little bit of info from the podcast All Killer No Filler, which is one of my all-time favourite podcasts, where they actually mentioned that apparently she was calling him a fucker and telling him to get fucked. Sutcliffe sees Wilma walking home drunkenly. He asks her if she's working tonight and offers her £5 for sex, which seems to be the going rate around the time. Wilma accepts and gets into the car with Sutcliffe. He then sexually assaults... Wait, Sum 41. What? Wilma accepts, so she gets into the car with Sutcliffe. He then sexually assaults her, as well as hitting her over the head with a ball-peen hammer and stabbing her multiple times. He dumps her body close to her home. All Killer No Filler. Okay. All Killer No Filler is actually a podcast I listen to, by the way. Not anything to do with Sum 41. And it's a fucking amazing podcast. I recommend it highly. But go check it out after this stream. Don't do it yet. So he after stabbing her multiple times, he dumps her body actually only a couple minutes away from her home. So the children wake up and notice that Wilma hasn't come home yet, and all 5 of the children go out of the house in their PJs and wait at the closest bus stop. Now they do this because this was actually the instruction of Wilma, that if she isn't home, go away at the bus stop and she won't be too long. Now, they are actually later found by the police, and they are unfortunately told the horrible news that their mum has actually passed away. The children then realised that they wouldn't see their mum again when the police car pulled up to a children's home where they would wait for their dad to collect them and take them back to Scotland. Now, Wilma's son Richard McCann has since written a book about the trauma himself. Hey, Milk! And like I said, Richard McCann has written a book about the trauma that him and his siblings suffered after the death of their mother. Richard said that for years he thought that the Ripper was actually coming back to murder him and his siblings. One of Sutcliffe's later victims, 16-year-old Jane MacDonald, was Richard and his siblings' babysitter at some points. Now, when her body was found, Richard went into a panic, thinking that the killer was murdering the ones closest to him to finish with the children. So he's affected so many people with what he did. The next victim is Emily Jackson. During the 1970s, the British economy reels from global shocks. Many families struggle, one being Emily Jackson and her husband Sidney. Now, they were close to losing their family home, and they agreed that Emily should become a sex worker in order to make ends meet. This was a joint thing that the couple both agreed on, I'm all for that. Now, Sydney works as well to hopefully that they can bring more money in, but it actually isn't bringing in too much money around this point. Emily uses the company van to service clients in the streets and car parks of Leeds, but on Tuesday, the 20th of January 1976, Emily and Sydney go to the pub in the city centre, and he would wait inside the pub while Emily tends to some clients in the van. Sutcliffe convinced Emily to get into his car instead, and he takes her to a more secluded area. Sutcliffe suggests having sex in the backseat of the car, and just as Emily goes into the backseat, Sutcliffe stabs her over 50 times with a screwdriver. Now, once she's dead, still enraged, he stamps on her leg, and Sutcliffe's attacks start to wear him out. He actually finds it hard to wake up for work the next day. And on the 5th of March 1976, he's fired from his delivery job for being late multiple times. He's a dick. The next one is Marcella Claxton. At 4 a.m. on the 9th of May 1976, 20-year-old Marcella Claxton walks home from a night out in Chapelton. Sutcliffe sees Marcella and asks her if she's working tonight and offers her £5 for sex. She agrees and gets into his car. He takes her to a field and she says she needs to go to the toilet, and as she goes, he hits her around the head with the hammer. He stands over her bleeding body and masturbates over her. At this point, she's pretending to be unconscious, and he actually finishes and places £5 in her hand and warns her not to call the police. And then he leaves. She later then manages to ring an ambulance. She gets sent to Leeds General Infirmary and has 52 stitches. You're probably wondering why she didn't go straight to the police, and this is because at this time, and still to this very day, the police are pretty shitty towards sex workers. And they don't treat them with the utmost respect, nor do they take their crimes seriously. I feel like I need to make a drinking game out of True Crime Fridays. Like, genuinely. Like, do I make a drinking game out of True Crime Fridays? I feel like it's needed at this point. The next victim is Irene Richardson. She's a 28-year-old sex worker. Like most of the women in her line of work, she is aware that someone is preying on sex workers. At this point in time, the sex workers are actually very much aware of what's going on. And is also aware that the police aren't willing to properly listen to their evidence, not willing to listen to their testimonies, nor are they willing to actually protect them. So they actually take it upon themselves to protect themselves and their own. They start to work in groups. They also start writing down car registration numbers and keeping track of where each woman goes and timing them to make sure that they come back safe. Milk, how are you? Yeah, hi Milk, I'm really good today. I'm very tired, so I'm having a few drinks, having some food, talking about true crime, bringing back True Crime Fridays to the stream because I missed it greatly. How are you doing today, Milk? So, like most of the women in her profession, Irene doesn't have a choice in the matter about the fact that she has to do this work because, ironically, at this particular time in history, the jobs for women were very much shit. There wasn't much going. I'm freaking bad. Dude, what's up? What's up? We can do both. We can talk about true crime and help you out, hopefully. So she's close. So Irene at this point is so close to being homeless and is so broke that her 2 children are with foster parents instead. Sutcliffe picks her up in the Leeds red light district and smashes her head in. He hits her skull so severely it penetrates her brain. He disembowels her and covers her body with her own coat. After Irene's death, the press nicknamed the killer the Yorkshire Ripper. But a sex worker isn't considered of general public interest, and the media attention soon moves on. I don't know, he has a major trigger warning. Do you want to just message me? Do you want to just message me privately? You can do that as well, that's completely fine. I don't want to trigger someone. Just message me if you want. That's completely fine if you just want to send me like a whisper or whatever. So the next victim is Tina, also known as Patricia Atkinson. She was a divorced mother of 3. She worked as a sex worker, but unlike the other women, she works from her flat because she sees it as a safer option for herself. She actually lets Sutcliffe into her flat and he hammers her in the back of her head. Now this time he actually finds her a lot more comfortable because he knows he can't be disturbed by absolutely anything. This time he uses a chisel and he stabs her 6 times. She's getting fucking stabbed with a chisel, man. She is found a few days later by her best friend, who hadn't heard from her in a few days, and he finds her mutilated body in her living room. Da-da-da-da-da. The next one is Janie. On the 26th of April, 16-year-old shop assistant Jane McDonald, having missed her bus and having failed to find a taxi, was walking home at this point is actually the best option. Now she's walking home past a playground and Sutcliffe picks her up and delivers 3 quick blows to the head. He drags her onto a waste ground. He then repeatedly stabs her to death. Before Jane's murder, the public weren't concerned about the murders, but because it wasn't a sex worker being killed, in their words, and quote, "Now that an innocent woman has been killed, I want the police to do something about it." Now that is actually a news clip that I've watched before from many of the documentaries from around the time. That is genuinely a quote that someone actually said. What's up, guys? I'm just replying to a message. So this was a quote from Henry Matthews, who was a former journalist. Prior to that point, the fear if you had been exclusively felt by working with prostitutes, but from Jane McDonald on, there was this feeling that no woman was safe. My own sisters used to walk around with this is a quote from Carl Sutcliffe himself, Peter Sutcliffe's brother. My own sisters used to walk around with knives in their handbags, although they were probably the safest people on the planet from the Yorkshire Ripper, but they had no idea that it was our brother Peter. So at this point, a big thing came out because the police decided to put a curfew on the women of Yorkshire, meaning that they couldn't go out past a certain time for their own safety. However, there was not any actual questioning or investigation to finding the Yorkshire Ripper himself. They had actually not really put in any effort in the slightest. So the men were actually just completely left to their own devices. As they do. Which is when the legendary Reclaim the Night movement became a thing. Reclaim the Night was a movement created by the women of Yorkshire around the time of the Yorkshire Ripper murders, because this was a serious issue where the women were being told to change everything about their behaviour even though they were doing nothing wrong, because clearly it wasn't just sex workers being murdered now, it was also any other woman that he could find. And this proves quite easily, because he was killing multiple women that weren't even sex workers. And how the fuck is he meant to know? Because some of them, he didn't even ask them if they want to have a go. So naturally, a lot of the women were getting angry. It is very understandable why they were getting angry, if I'm being honest. And this actually ended up with Reclaim the Night movement, which ended up being with a bunch of protests taking place at night in Yorkshire. Now, the next victim is Maureen. The public panic has very little effect on Sutcliffe as he continues to hunt down... I know, right? As he continues to hunt down women in Yorkshire. In the early hours of the 10th of July 1977, he attacks Maureen Long. It's only a barking dog that interrupts him and stops him from killing her. And Sutcliffe has spotted Maureen. So Sutcliffe actually spots Maureen coming out of Tiffany's. Tiffany's makes a lot of appearances in this. And pulled over his car after cruising slowly behind her as she made her way past the taxi stand. He asked her whether she was going far, and when he inquired whether he was offering her a lift, I've not got water. I've got Italian spritz. I'm good. I think my posture's actually fine today. Shockingly. It's a nice setup, right? I'm always satisfied for true crime talks. Shit. Sorry, neighbours. So, when she inquired whether he was offering her a lift, he indicated that he was if she wanted one. Once in the car, she explained that she was living in Bowling, just on the other side of the city centre, a rundown area among the railway yards. She also told him that she was living with an ex-boxer, aka her ex-husband, who she described as a spoilsport. Upon reaching Rendell Street, she directed him to not stop right in front of her house to not anger her ex-husband, so he stopped a short distance away. Maureen was discovered at 8:30 the next morning when two women walking near the waste ground where she was left heard her weeping. At first, the women thought the cries were from an abandoned baby, but she had actually suffered one blow to the head and stab wounds to her chest, stomach and back, including one slashing stab wound from her breast to below her navel. She actually survived this attack. She fucking survived this. How the hell? But she did. Legend. When she's in hospital, George Oldfield, who is in charge of the task force into finding the Yorkshire Ripper, bursts in before she goes into surgery, demanding to know what she saw and who the Ripper was. But she actually couldn't remember anything at this point, and after the surgery, she actually couldn't remember anything at all. Now, after this, she spent 6 weeks in hospital and then an additional 3 weeks in a home. After this, she had no money and is on £13 a week benefits, as most people were at the time. She gets arrested for shoplifting and sent to court, where they demand a £75 fine, which she actually can't pay at the time. She explains she's still waiting on compensation for a crime that was committed against her, and all she got from this was £300 and paid back the fine from that. She also argued that this wasn't enough and then received £700. Then later she receives £1,000 in compensation. The next victim is Jean Jordan. On the 1st of October 1977, Peter Sutcliffe makes a serious error. He pays Jean Jordan with a brand new £5 note from his pay packet. After killing her, he hides her body. Only later does he realise how incriminating the new banknote could be. Now, at this point, these new banknotes had only been given out, there wasn't that many that had actually made it out yet. And one place that actually did get a couple of new £5 notes was the place where he actually worked. So it would have been pretty obvious to probably track down the Yorkshire Ripper if the £5 note was found. He waits a week, and after driving guests home from a housewarming party, he returns to the body. Her handbag is missing, and furious and frustrated, he slashes her decomposing body, creating an 8-inch deep post-mortem wounds. Now his hacksaw failed to cut through her entire neck, and he leaves. Her body was found by Coronation Street star Bruce Jones only a few days later. That's a weird little fact for you. Next victim is Marilyn Moore. On the 14th of December, he agrees a price with Marilyn Moore, but his first hammer blow doesn't stun her, and her screams actually set off a dog barking. Patched up at the hospital, but still penniless, and despite having a hole in her head from the Ripper, she soon returns to sex work. So Sutcliffe later kills Yvonne Pearson on the 21st of January 1978. Her body lies undiscovered until March. 10 days later, he hammers 18-year-old Heaven Ritka to the ground. He has sex with her as she bleeds. He then stabs her through her lungs and her heart. Her twin sister is also a sex worker, and they have plans to actually meet each other after each of their clients in the same location. Helen had arrived early to the location when Sutcliffe arrived, so she had actually arrived early. Sutcliffe arrived, and she kind of basically was like, I've got 5 minutes until I'm meant to meet up with my sister. Yeah, I can go with this guy. It shouldn't take too long. Now, the two were from Jamaican and Italian families. They lived together in a one-room apartment and worked together in the red light district. Helen went with Sutcliffe to pass the time while she waited for her sister, and her sister has actually scared the police and doesn't report Helen missing for another 2 days. The next victim is Vera Millward. After a 10-week break, Sutcliffe meets 41-year-old Vera Millward, a Spanish-born mother of 7. Vera is in pain after an operation and has popped out for painkillers at the time. Sutcliffe slashes her stomach so severely that she is disemboweled, and her screams are heard by a father and son visiting the hospital. and they ignore both of her cries because they just think that it's part of, like, it's just a patient that's at the hospital all the time. This is actually a hospital. This is actually Manchester Royal Infirmary, and I've been there a couple times, so it's kind of disturbing to find that out later on in life, and I've gone past there a fair few times as well. Sutcliffe took the 11 following months off from killing because his mother's health actually was failing around the time. She dies from a heart disease on the 8th of November 1978. Whilst he takes his breaks, the police are still kept busy because in March 1978 they start to receive letters from the apparent Ripper. Now this is when we go into a little man called Wearside Jack. Now these were a couple of the letters that he actually sent to the Yorkshire police, to the police. This is quote unquote what was in the letter. Dear Sir, I am sorry I can't give my name for obvious reasons. I am the Ripper. I've been dubbed a maniac by the press, but not by you. You call me clever, and I am. You and your mates haven't a clue that photo in the paper gave me fits, and that bit about killing myself? No chance. I've got things to do. My purpose to rid the streets of them sluts. My one regret is young Lassie MacDonald. Did not know, 'cause changed routine that night. Up to number 8 now. You say 7, but remember Preston 75. Get about a bit, you know. You're right. I travel a bit. You probably look for me in Sunderland. Don't bother. I'm not daft. Just posted a letter there on one of my trips. You talking about the Yorkshire Ripper? I am. Not a bad place compared to Chapelton and Manningham and other places. Warn horse to keep off the streets because I feel it coming on again. Sorry about young Lassie. Yours respectfully, Jack the Ripper. The second letter was actually sent to the Daily Mirror. It wasn't actually sent to George Oldfield. So this one is for the Daily Mirror to go into the press, and it says, Dear Sir, I have already written to Chief Constable George Oldfield, a man I respect, concerning the Ripper murders. I told him, and I'm telling you to warn them whores. I will strike again, and soon when the heat cools off. About the MacDonald lassie, I didn't know she was decent, and I am sorry, I changed my routine that night. Up to murder 8 now, you say 7, but remember Preston 75, so he's just like repeating himself at this point. Easy picking them up, don't even try. You think they learn, but they don't. Most are young lassies, next time try older one, I hope. Police haven't a clue yet, I don't leave any. I am very clever, and don't look for me up there in Sunderland, because I'm not stupid. Just pass through the place, not a bad place compared to Chapelton and Manningham. Can't walk the streets for them whores. Don't forget, warn them. I feel it coming on again. If I get a chance, sorry about Lassie, I didn't know. Yours respectfully, Jack the Ripper. P.S. My right again after another week gone by. Maybe Liverpool or even Manchester again. Too hot in here in Yorkshire. Bye. I've given advance warning, so it's yours and their fault. The third letter and final letter from Wearside Jack was to the police, to George Oldfield again. This one says, Dear Officer, sorry I haven't written for about a year to be exact, but I haven't been up north for quite a while. I wasn't kidding the last time I wrote saying the whore would be older this time, and maybe I'd strike in Manchester for a change. You should have took heed. That bit about being in hospital, funny, the lady mentioned something about being in hospital before I stopped her whoring ways. The lady won't worry about hospitals now, will she? I bet you'd be wondering how come I haven't been to work for ages. Well, I would be if it hadn't been for your cursed coppers. I had the lady just where I wanted her and was about to strike when one of your cursing police cars stopped right outside the lane. He must have been a dumb copper because he didn't say anything. He didn't know how close he was to catching me. Tell you the truth, I thought I was collared. The lady said don't worry about the coppers. Little did she know that bloody copper saved her neck. That was last month, so I don't know when I'll be back on the job. But I know it won't be Chapelton. Too bloody hot there. Maybe Bradford's Manningham. My right again if up north. Jack the Ripper. P.S. Did you get the letter I sent to the Daily Mirror in Manchester? Transcript of the tape which fooled detectives. So, the tapes. He didn't just send letters, he also sent voice tapes. And when the tapes arrived, George Oldfield is convinced 110% that this is the Ripper. Now, the thing is, they still aren't listening to the women who survived the attacks. A lot of the women who have came face to face with the Yorkshire Ripper do remember him exactly. They give perfect descriptions of how he looks like, but the police ignore it. They also say that the tapes also show that the person who's speaking has more of a Geordie accent, and the women that come forward to give evidence about the Yorkshire Ripper and their statements say that he did not have a Geordie accent. He had a Yorkshire accent, not a Geordie. I know Sunderland is not Geordie, I know, but that was the accent, and that is how it's described when you research. But George Horfield just ignores all of it, just throws it away. You don't care. Now, they actually ignore like what women say. When women say what the Yorkshire Ripper looks like and when they've seen him, they just ignore that too. Like, they actually ignore all of that. The women actually say he's got curly hair, he's got brown eyes, he's white, he's from Yorkshire. The police went around and said that the guy was a person of colour. No one said that he was, but the police was like, he's a person of colour. Are they fucking stupid? No one said that he is. The witnesses even said that he was white. Oh my god. That gets me up a bit. So George Oldfield is convinced that this is the Ripper and the tapes are accurate and begins to get experts in. Hey, sweet chili. Experts listen to the tapes and figure out that the man is from Sunderland. The police then put out to the public that the Yorkshire Ripper is from Sunderland and has a Geordie accent. Despite the many survivors expressing that the man isn't a Geordie and that he's local, the police ignore the women who have come face to face with Sutcliffe and for the next few years carry on with the lead that they are looking for a Geordie with distinctive handwriting. If you was a fruit, you'd be a fine apple. I do love these. Sweet chili, you make my day. Now they start putting the letters absolutely everywhere. They're on billboards, they're in newspapers, they're on posters, they're absolutely scattered around the place. And they start even playing the tapes everywhere, so they even have a hotline where people could ring up, listen to the tapes, and see if they could recognise the voice. They had the letters everywhere, so people could ring in. The people would basically they'd see the letters. They'd recognise the handwriting, and then they would ring the hotline and see if they recognise the voice and see if they can match them together, which... Why was the Twin Towers angry? Oh, Jesus, mate, this is going on YouTube, man. So... If they would have actually listened to the victims, this would have been perfect policing, but because they didn't listen to the victims, the policing was pretty... shit. Because he... Oh god. Oh god. Oh god. Okay. Okay, sweet chili. So, guys, if you're in a nightclub, what would be the ultimate downer that would make the night completely ruined in a nightclub? What's the song that gets you the most emotional? 1970 something by Neck Deep. 110%. Every single time. Makes me cry. So they'd even start playing the tapes, like I said. What puts it down in a nightclub? Probably hearing Yorkshire Ripper tapes. The lights would go up, and they'd play the tapes, which is gonna fucking ruin your night, though, isn't it? That's gonna ruin your night. Also, they also play them at football games as well, so that's gonna ruin your game for you. The next victim is Josephine. On Wednesday the 4th of April 1979, Sutcliffe ends his grieving period and bank clerk Josephine Walker is returning at midnight from visiting her grandparents when he finds her and hammers her twice and then stabs her 25 times. The next victim is Barbara. Mine is definitely another love, just... On the 1st of September 1979, Bradford student Barbara Leach dies instantly from the first hammer blow. He dumps her stabbed body under a carpet that's been left on the side of the road. Now, police at this point have interviewed Sutcliffe 9 times in connection to the Ripper murders, but has ruled him out because he wasn't a Geordie nor a person of colour. He was interviewed so many times that his work colleagues began calling him the Ripper. And even at the time, he started an affair with a woman in Scotland. He even met her family, which absolutely loved the guy, but also made many comments about how he had evil eyes, which he shockingly replied with, "Oh, it's because I'm the Yorkshire Ripper. Ha 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 ha." And they all found it so funny. That definitely grew his ego. I definitely did. In April 1980, Sutcliffe is arrested for drink driving, but is set free and is not questioned any further. The next victim is Margaret. Civil servant Margaret Wells is working late on the evening of the 20th of August 1980. She walks home along a well-lit road. She screams and Sutcliffe hammers her head in with a ball-peen hammer. Having forgotten his knife, he strangles her instead, which made the police not link this murder with the others. In fact, the last few were not connected because they believed he was still on a break from murdering. They thought his killing spree big break lasted 18 months, not 11. His next two victims survive. His first is in September 1980 and is on a visiting Singaporean doctor, Pandra, who actually survived the attack. The next one is a woman named Teresa Sykes. Unlike Tracy Brown, however, 16-year-old Teresa Sykes doesn't find her youth a defence or a time healer. She and her family were never the same again after Sutcliffe attacked her with a ball-peen hammer. She at the time was living with her boyfriend and their newborn baby boy. But after this attack, she ends the relationship, moves back home with her parents, and completely goes off the rails. She gets addicted to alcohol, to drugs, everything completely switches, and her life is just completely ruined after this. The next murder is Jacqueline Hill. On Monday, the 17th of November 1980, Leeds student Jacqueline Hill passes Sutcliffe eating a KFC. When he sat there, the actual doctor that survived the attack actually passes by, so they were very, very close contact by that point. He followed Jacqueline and she is nearly home when he attacks her. He drags her behind some bushes and stabs her multiple times, and even her eye is mutilated. We're on to the final victim. Because she lived this. She survived because, thankfully, this is when the cunt gets caught. On Friday, the 2nd of January 1981, Sutcliffe picks up mother of two, Olivia Reivers. By this state, he is incapable of being aroused no matter how hard she actually tries. So she tries to arouse him. It's not happening. It's not working. So instead, they just end up talking in his car. And according to Olivia, he just constantly spoke about himself, which isn't really a shock. They were interrupted when a police officer recognises Olivia from previous arrests for sex work, and he asks them both what they are doing. Sutcliffe says that Olivia is his girlfriend, and the officer is aware of what Olivia's lifestyle is and tells her to get out of the car. Because he actually asks Peter, "What's her name then?" And he says, I don't know her name, we'd only be going out for a little bit. Alright, Peter. The officer goes to bring Peter into the car to take him to the station, and Peter then says that he needs to go to the toilet. So the officer lets him go behind a wall, but when he's there, he drops his hammer, knife, and rope and leaves them there. He gets taken to the station, and the officers interviewing him notice he looks like the E-fit for the Yorkshire Ripper. Also, Peter happens to mention his car that he adores, which is the car that has been noted down as the Yorkshire Ripper's car. The officers then clock this and start asking him about his shoe size in casual conversations and asking questions that match the E-fit. So basically what's happened around this point is George Oldfield is actually no longer in charge of the task force, and they've actually hired someone new who has actually started to listen to the witnesses, so they've actually managed to get a very accurate E-fit and very accurate descriptions of Peter Sutcliffe, which is why they've got all this information at this point. The officers mentioned this to the officer who brought him in the night before, which he then recalls that when Peter went to the toilet, he heard something metallic fall. The police officer actually goes back to the scene and finds the hammer, rope, and knife. At this point, they have also gone to get Sonia and brought her to the station for questioning. They had already explained that Peter was arrested for wrong number plates originally, but is now being investigated as the Yorkshire Ripper murders. Sonia answers all the questions completely honestly and not giving an alibi for Peter at any single point. Now Sonia was definitely not aware of this. Bear in mind she has a full-time teaching job, and also she actually has schizophrenia. She had way too much going on. She's not thinking about what Peter's doing. So the detectives then call George Oldfield. He's not a part of the task force anymore, but he was the one who started it, so naturally they call George. And they tell him that they might have caught the Ripper. He instantly drives to the station in Sheffield, and they ask Peter where he was when Jean Jordan was murdered, which he says he was at home at 7 p.m. Now Sonia had already told the police that he actually hadn't come home until after 10 p.m. that day. After a long while, Peter says to the detectives, "Right, I know where you're going with this. I'm him. I'm the Yorkshire Ripper." And that's how he's caught. He is charged later with the crimes, and he was sentenced to life in prison. Now, he did try and play that he was a schizophrenic by watching Sonia throughout the years, so he managed to pick up some of her traits that she had as a schizophrenic, and this did not work. However, he did get sent to Broadmoor, which is a hospital for the criminally insane, and then he later got sent to an actual prison. And on Friday the 13th, November 2020, Peter Sutcliffe actually died in hospital due to COVID-19. And that's the Yorkshire Ripper, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that. But he did actually pass away to COVID. He was tested positive a few weeks earlier, and he refused treatment because he actually wanted to die. So, yes. Also, you'd like to know that Sonia did divorce him in the 1990s, and she is remarried, but she does still live in the house that they did own together, which is a bit weird. But yeah, guys, that is the True Crime Friday stream for today. This is also the YouTube video as well. So for YouTube, hi. I'd also like to say thank you for watching the video. Please like and subscribe and check out Twitch, because this is a Twitch highlight. Who we raiding? Does anyone have a suggestion for who we could raid? I've got a bit of time. Can I guess your age? Go for it. Go on, guess my age. I'm intrigued what you think. Even though my age is on here. Oh, is this someone we can raid? Are you 18 or 20? Neither. I am neither. You know what? I'm wanting to find someone to raid who is not affiliated yet. And she an old lady. I'm not that fucking old, man. You know what, guys? I think I'm not 24. We will raid Squelchy. Fuck it. Who's playing the guitar right now? 22, correct. I'm 22. You know what? We'll raid Squelchy because she looks pretty cool, to be fair. She's playing the guitar. And, you know what? Yeah, we'll raid her. We'll raid her. She seems like a vibe. And she's not affiliated yet, so I feel like that's a good way to end the stream, I think. So, guys, we are going to be going over, hopefully you guys can go over and say hi, but we are going to raid Squelchy right now, who's currently playing the guitar and causing some chaos. So let's go over and say hi and cheer and make a day a bit. Now I'll see YouTube. I'll see you all next week. Love ya. Like and subscribe. Follow the Twitch, because this is a Twitch highlight and I'm like this all the time. Let's go, motherfuckers.
Drop my ukulele. Raid. Thank you for the raid, little goth panda. Ow! I just flung a mouse. Not a real mouse, like a computer mouse. Imagine if